The following views and opinions do not represent RiverWestRadio.com in any way and is the sole responsibility of the producers, callers, and guests.
You know why you're here, Mr. Wordsworth?
Yes, sir.
I'd ask you to speak up a little, if you will.
Yes, sir. I know why I am here.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation, Mr.
A
Wordsworth?
radio talk show host.
What?
A radio talk show host, sir.
I'm told you've had counsel and been given orientation, Mr. Wordsworth, but I'm still not sure in my own mind that you understand the purpose of this hearing. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. This finding carries with it serious implications. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Now I ask you again, your occupation?
I am a radio talk show host. That is my occupation, my profession. If you people choose to call that obsolete...
Request clarification of the term? Yes, the term. Mr. Wordsworth, you people, you make reference to the state?
I make reference to the state.
And you persist in declaring your occupation, correct?
That is correct.
A minister. A minister would tell us that his function is that of preaching the word of God. And of course it follows that since the state has proven that there is no God, that would make the function of a minister somewhat academic as well.
There is a God.
You are in error, Mr. Wordsworth. There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions, the Bible, poetry, essays of all kinds, all of it an opiate, to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health. Good afternoon. It is Monday, July 2nd, 2012. We've made it this far, 6 months past into the year 2012. We should be congratulated. I myself am not one to subscribe to the Mayan prophecy. I think it's a new beginning, and we are definitely in a transitional era. Let me continue today right off the bat with an article from Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, a very wise man. Words worth listening to without a doubt. His article is on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, corporate escape from accountability. Information has been leaked out about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is being negotiated in secret by U.S. Trade Representative Ron Kirk. 600 corporate advisors are on the know, but not Congress or the media. Ron Wyden, chairman of the Senate Trade Subcommittee that has jurisdiction over the TPP, has not been permitted to see the text or know the content. The TPP has been called a one-percenter power tool. The agreement essentially abolishes the accountability of foreign corporations to governments of countries which they trade. Indeed, the agreement makes governments accountable to corporations for costs imposed by regulations, including health, safety, and environmental regulations. The agreement gives corporations the right to make governments pay for the cost of complying with the regulations of government. One wonders how long environmental, labor, and financial regulation can survive when the costs of compliance are imposed on the taxpayers of countries and not on the economic activity that results in spillover effects such as pollution. Many will interpret the TPP as another big step toward the establishment of global government in the New World Order. However, what the TPP actually does is to remove corporations or the spillover effects of their activities from the reach of the government. As the TPP does not transfer to corporations the power to govern countries, it is difficult to see how it leads to global government. The real result is global privilege of the corporate class as a class immune to government regulation. One of the provisions allows corporations to avoid the courts and laws of countries by creating a private tribunal that corporations can use to sue governments for the costs of complying with regulation. Essentially, the laws of countries that apply to corporations are supplanted by decisions a private tribunal of corporate lawyers. The TPP is open to all countries. Currently, it is being negotiated between the U.S., Australia, Brunei, New Zealand, Singapore, Vietnam, Chile, and Peru, and Australia. Australia, according to reports, has refused to submit to the private tribunal system. Good for you, Australia. What are we to make of the TPP? It is perhaps too early to have all the answers. However, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts can offer some ways of thinking about it. He doubts that the TPP is a New World Order takeover. If anything, the TPP reduces the scope of global government by exempting corporations from government control. Also, global government, unless it is government by the American empire, is inconsistent with the neoconservatives' insistence on U.S. hegemony all over the world. Powerful U.S. ideological, private, and government interest groups have no intention of losing the power that they have acquired by being rolled into some New World Order, unless the New World Order is a euphemism for the American empire. In the criticisms of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I just wanted to make sure I had that. In the criticisms of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, much emphasis is placed on the cost that corporations of foreign members of the agreement can impose on the U.S. However, U.S. corporations gain the same privileges over those countries, as the agreement gives every country's corporations immunity to the other country's laws. It could be the case that the U.S. corporations believe that their penetration on the other countries It could be the case that U.S. corporations believe that their penetration of the other countries will greatly exceed the activities in the U.S. of Brunei, New Zealand, Peru, and the rest of them. However, once Japan, Canada, China, and others join the TPP, the prospect of American firms getting more out of the agreement than foreign firms disappears, unless, from the U.S. perspective, the definition of foreign firms includes U.S. corporations that offshore the production of goods and services that they market in the U.S. If this is the case, then U.S. offshoring firms would be exempt not only from the laws and courts of foreign countries, but also exempt from the laws and courts of the U.S. This point is possibly moot, as the agreement requires all governments that are parties to the TPP to harmonize their laws so that the new corporate privileges are equally reflected in every country. To avoid discriminatory law against a country's own corporations that do not engage in foreign trade, harmonization could mean that domestic corporations would be granted the same privileges as foreign investors. If not, domestic firms might acquire the privileges by setting up a foreign subsidiary consisting of an office. As the TPP is clearly an agreement being pushed by U.S. corporations, the implication is that the U.S. corporations see it as being to their relative advantage. However, it is unclear what this advantage is. Alternatively, TPP is a strategy for securing exemption from regulation under the guise of being a trade agreement. Another explanation, judging from the unusual collection of the initial parties to the agreement, is that the agreement is part of Washington's strategy of encircling China with military bases, as the U.S. has done to Russia. One would have thought that an agreement of such path-breaking nature would have begun with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. However, these countries are already part of China's encirclement. Brunei, Singapore, New Zealand, and especially Vietnam would be valuable additions. Are the special privileges that Washington is offering these countries part of the bribe to become de facto outpost of American empire? Yet another explanation is that Ron Kirk is caught up in the deregulatory mindset that began with the repeal of Glass-Steagall and financial deregulation. If financial markets know best and are self-regulating, requiring no government interference, then so are also other markets and businesses. Free market economists view regulations as, quote, takings. The argument is that regulations take corporate property profits, for example, by making corporations comply with health, safety, and environmental regulation, just as government takes private property when it builds or widens a road. Therefore, corporations should be compensated for takings that result from regulation. As the argument goes, if government wants corporations to protect the environment, the government should pay the corporations for the cost of doing so. This argument gets rid of external costs or social costs, costs that corporations impose on others and future generations by the pollution and exhaustion of natural resources, for example. The argument turns social costs into compensations for takings. The TPP is likely serving many agendas. As we learn more, the motives behind the TPP will become clearer. From Dr. Paul Craig Roberts' perspective, as an economist and former member of government, the problems with Ron Kirk's TPP is that the agreement is constructed to serve private, not public interests. Kirk is a public official charged with serving and protecting the public interest. Yet, he has conspired in secret with private interests to produce a document that exempts private corporations from public accountability. There is a paradox here. While financial corporations and now all corporations are being made independent of government, U.S. citizens have lost the protection of law and are now subject to being detained indefinitely or murdered without due process of law. Corporations gain an unimaginable freedom, while citizens lose all freedom and the rights that define their freedom. Similarly, foreign countries, which as members of TPP can be exempt from U.S. law, are subject to preemptive U.S. violation of their airspace and borders by drones and troops sent in to assassinate some suspected terrorists, but which also kill citizens of those countries who are merely going about their normal business. Perhaps one way to understand TPP is that the U.S. government is now extending its own right to be lawless to corporations. Just the U.S. government today is only answerable to itself. The TPP makes corporations answerable only to themselves. Public citizens' analysis of TPP can be found online, and the leaked document is available at www.citizenstrade.org/etc/WP-content//uploads/2012//TPP investment.pdf. Thank you very much. This article first appeared at Dr. Paul Craig Roberts' new website, Institute for Political Economy. Paul Craig Roberts was Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Economic Policy and Associate Editor of the Wall Street Journal. He was columnist for Business Week, Scripps Howard News Service, and Creator Syndicate. He has had many university appointments. His internet columns have attracted a worldwide following, and I was very glad to bring this update about the Trans-Pacific Partnership to you through him. I'm Michael Wordsworth. We have lots of news today. Stay tuned.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late, and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state, amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in the drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay. Get involved. Get informed. Obamacare is the hot issue this week, just coming out. We have a few articles to read today, and we'd like to do an ongoing debate, get some guests on the show, and discuss this topic. It's a complicated issue, without a doubt, and I'd like to hear opinions from both sides. Right now, one of the best lines I heard about it is that basically we're giving the power of insurance regulation to the 1%, the 99% in exchange for this idea that we're going to get free health care and somehow have a utopian system. Really amounts to basically we're going to make it so insurance companies can put down mandatory legislation that demands we buy their products. I'm sure you have your opinions out there, and if you'd like to call in today, the number is 414-935-2951. Currently at the moment, our website is down, but the show will be archived, and we're going to get things back up and running, so apologize if you tuned in earlier and we're unable to get the show. But I'm going to keep going because this is an important issue. Obamacare, the great swindle. This article from Mike Adams from Natural News on Monday, July 2nd, 2012. Now that Obamacare has been ruled a tax by the U.S. Supreme Court, reality is starting to sink in for all those who emotionally supported it. Promoted as a way to provide either free health care or low-cost health and care to the masses, the sobering reality is that under Obamacare, health insurance prices keep rising and not falling. That's no surprise, of course, since the Obama legislation was practically written by health insurance companies, and they sure didn't put their weight behind a sweeping new law that would earn them less profit. In an era when the so-called 99% are sick and tired of being exploited by the 1% who control basically everything, they just handed their medical futures over to precisely that 1% who skillfully monopolized the conventional healthcare system. Obamacare is, at every level, a huge victory for the 1%. A costly new tax on the middle class doesn't bode well. By the year 2016, the Obamacare penalty tax will reach roughly $2,000 per year for a two-person household. According to Stephen Moore of the Wall Street Journal, 75% of the financial burden of Obamacare's new taxes will fall onto Americans making less than $120,000 a year. The great middle class, in other words, will bear this new tax more than anyone else. In effect, what has really happened here is a great swindle. Obama got the middle class to support his legislation by promising it was not a tax and by promising it would lower health insurance costs. In reality, however, it raises health insurance costs. It is a tax, and the majority of that tax burden falls squarely on the very same middle class voters who put Obama into office under false pretenses. That's a swindle by any definition. Not surprisingly, this realization does sit well with many middle-class taxpayers. While the original emotional appeal of Obamacare was nicely packaged and is seductively marketed to the masses, the sobering post-honeymoon reality slaps us all in the face like a wet fish. Smack. This thing is another huge tax increase on the working class, and on top of that, it gives the IRS scary new powers to pry into our private finances. How did you all think compliance with Obamacare was going to be enforced? It's going to be a matter where we empower the IRS with even more agents to come after us. Interesting. Government monopoly for big pharma, even worse than the trillions in new taxes in the IRS spy grid that's now being set up to monitor compliance with Obamacare. There's also the sobering fact that Obamacare never even attempted to give consumers a free choice in their healthcare providers. There's no coverage of naturopathic medicine, herbal medicine, acupuncture, or nutritional therapies. The entire law is written around and for big pharma and the conventional sick care industry that's best described as a medical racket. Thanks to the U.S. Supreme Court, we don't even have a chance to opt out of this corrupt, failed system of patented chemical medications and overpriced surgical procedures. Now we are forced to hand over our hard-earned money to the very same medical system that we already know is responsible for killing over 750,000 Americans a year. It's called iatrogenic death, and it means death by health care. So not only are we being chemically abused and medically enslaved in America, we are now financially forced to pay for the privilege of being raked over the coals by the medical establishment. It makes you wonder, where's the care in Obamacare? But wait, there's more. From this position of being coerced by the government to pay for a system of medicine you don't even want, it's not much of a leap to being coerced to undergo medical procedures you don't want either. How Obamacare will lead to mandatory vaccinations for everyone? I'll tell you, forced vaccinations for adults. They're on the way, friends, and here's why. Once everybody is in the system of mandatory health care, we will begin to hear arguments like this. Anyone who refuses to get vaccinated against influenza is thereby at risk of being an influenza carrier and infecting other people, thus increasing healthcare costs for us all. To save money, government must force everyone to get vaccinated. There you go. It's a false argument, of course, but it will be used literally to line people up at the courthouses with the threat of arrest and jail time and force them all to be vaccinated against their will. The same false logic can be used to force people to undergo chemotherapy, take AIDS drugs, undergo coronary bypass surgery, or be subjected to almost any medical procedure deemed necessary by the government. In the realm of mental health and psychiatry, this opens up a Pandora's box of exploitation of patients for the purpose of raking in record profits for the criminally operated psychiatric drug industry. Such is the inevitable abuse of monopolistic market practices enforced by a corrupt government that serves the interest of its corporate masters. Once the sick care industry has this monopoly and can force everyone to participate, they will exploit that advantage to its fullest profiteering capacity. Remember, it is a dream of every corporation to dominate the world. Obamacare just gave Big Pharma and the other sick care giants huge monopolistic cheats to pursue precisely that goal. Sober up, America. In a time when consumers are increasingly demanding transparency, free choice, and the ability to shop around for competitive bargains, Obamacare codifies secrecy, mandatory compliance, and monopolistic practices. Maybe it's time to sober up and take an honest look at what Obamacare really is instead of what Obama promised it would be. People bought into the dream, but what they actually received was a monumental swindle. That article from Mike Adams from naturalnews.com. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News. We'll be right back.
You're listening to riverwestradio.com.
The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, We're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO. The TSA has consistently made the news with bad reports about its moral conduct, questionable employees, civil rights violations, everything from workers stealing cash out of travelers' luggage to trafficking drugs through airport security gates. Congresswoman Blackburn recently brought to the news media an awareness of the TSA's hiring of known child molesters and child porn collectors. My question is, why are we putting up with this? Why have we become so tolerant of being peasant slaves that we will acquiesce to anything? I've come to the DFW International Airport outside Dallas, Texas, to ask some questions of ordinary passengers and to interview the TSA workers themselves. Let's go in and see what they have to say.
I don't like what I have to put up with every time I fly.
Ted Wilsonberg travels by plane frequently and has to get groped on a regular basis. But does he have to put up with this?
No. Hell no. I'd keep these guys out of here if I could.
So you don't think that we need to be molested in the interest of national security?
No. Think about it. A police officer can't just come up and put their hands in your crotch. But these guys feel me up every time I pass through these gates.
But why do you put up with it?
I have to do this. My job depends that I fly 3 to 4 times a week. I have a family, you know?
The TSA stands for total suckasses when it comes to trampling on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. How do they get away with it? I asked the director of security here at the airport at Dallas-Fort Worth. Yeah, well, when you pass through them front doors of this airport, you're no longer in America, boy. You're now in international territory bound by international law. And that's the great secret. The Constitution of the United States does not apply in its airports. Since September 11th, 2001, the Bill of Rights has been circumvented because of the threat of terrorism, when in actuality, you're more likely to die from a bee sting or be struck by lightning than actually be affected by terrorists.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Thousands protest resumption of nuclear power in Japan. Thousands of people marched across Japan over the weekend to protest the country's resumption of nuclear power. Japan halted nuclear production earlier this year for the first time since the 1970s, but resumed on Saturday by bringing the shuttered Ohi plant back online. Ohi is Japan's first nuclear power plant to restart since the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Protester Akiko Kondo criticized the Japanese government's decision. His quote, while saying they're going to restart, there continue to be various problems even with the Ohi nuclear power plant. When I hear about this, and under these circumstances, to have the plant running, all I can really say is that the government and all those involved really shock me. Protests in Hong Kong as new leaders sworn in. Tens of thousands of people took part in an annual rally for democracy and economic equality in Hong Kong on Sunday, amid the swearing in of the city's new chief executive, Leung Chun-ying. Chinese President Hu Jintao came under protest as he presided over the ceremony when a demonstrator rushed the stage. Chu Ying is Hong Kong's third chief executive since China regained control of the city in 1997 after over a century of British rule. Dozens killed in Syria as diplomats call for transition. At least 140 people were killed over the weekend in violence across Syria. The clashes came amidst an international gathering in Geneva that yielded a call for a new transition plan to end the crisis. Russia and China agreed to endorse the proposal after it omitted reference to the exclusion of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad from a new Syrian government. Iran, a close ally of Assad, was left out of the meeting at the insistence of the United States. UNESCO issues World Heritage Protection for Bethlehem Church of the Nativity. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO, has declared parts of the West Bank of the city of Bethlehem and its Church of the Nativity to be an endangered World Heritage Site. The Palestinian Authority has sought the designation in a bid to speed up urgently needed repairs and help protect the city from Israeli occupation. The EU enacts new sanctions on Iran. The European Union has enacted new sanctions against Iran following their approval earlier this year. The measures ban imports of Iranian oil and hampered efforts by other countries to trade with Iran. Speaking at the United Nations, Iranian Ambassador Mohammad Kaazi said his government remains committed to negotiations and a nuclear-free Middle East. The quotation from Mohammad Kaazi is this. He says, "We believe that going toward or moving toward having a nuclear bomb is a damage for our credibility and also the stability in the region. That's why we emphasize that we should have a Middle East free zone of nuclear weapons." Barclays chair resigns over rate fixing. We're going to have more on that story, but generally the chair of the banking giant Barclays has resigned in the aftermath of an interest rate fixing scandal that will likely spread to other firms. Marcus Agius, I guess as good as mine, Agius, announced his departure just days after Barclays was fined $453 million by U.S. and British authorities for manipulating key interest rates. A British probe found Barclays conspired to manipulate the London Interbank Offered Rate, known as LIBOR, which provides the basis for rates on trillions of dollars of transactions across the globe. The manipulation meant millions of borrowers paid the wrong amount on their loans. A Justice Department probe of Barclays is continuing, and other banks could be implicated as well. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial. To counter their commercials, don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. The FBI headquarters is a huge modern building in the middle of downtown. Cars and trucks drive past the front entrance on this very active street, and these doors will lead us to the elevators that will take us to the office of Deputy Director Hank Polarank.
Welcome to the FBI headquarters. Can I help you?
Yes, I have an appointment with Deputy Director Polarank.
And your name is?
Michael Wordsworth from RiverWestRadios.com, Breaking Down the News Show.
Michael who? No.
The staff at the FBI was professional and courteous as they greeted me, and after a few security complications were smoothed out, I was soon able to get in to do my interview. Michael Wordsworth from Breaking Down the News.
Hey, come on in, take a seat.
And it was an interesting interview. How many terrorist plots has the FBI foiled in the last few years?
We've been busy, very busy with ongoing investigations. It's hard to say off the top of my head. 10, maybe 12?
And out of those 10 or 12 incidents, how many of those were not terrorist plots instigated by the FBI?
None actually.
Not one.
Well, the underwear bomber, that wasn't us.
But it came to light that the underwear bomber was forced onto the plane by a well-dressed man, and he didn't go through security. That wasn't the FBI.
No. Might have been Secret Service. I think they handled that one.
I'd like to quote an article from the New York Times. Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
This is an article by David K. Shipler, published April 29, 2012, and I quote, "But all these dramas were facilitated by the FBI, whose undercover agents and informers posed as terrorists offering a dummy missile, fake C4 explosives, a disarmed suicide vest, and rudimentary training. Suspects naively played their parts until they were arrested. When an Oregon college student, Mohammed Osman Mohammed, thought of using a car bomb to attack a festive Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, the FBI provided a van loaded with 55-gallon drums of inert material, harmless blasting caps, a detonator cord, and a gallon of diesel fuel to make the van smell flammable. An undercover FBI agent even did the driving, with Mr. Muhammad in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
To trigger the bomb, the student punched a number into a cell phone and got no boom, only a bust. What do you say to that?
What's your point?
My point is it sounds like we really don't have a terrorism problem in America beyond those plots the FBI makes up itself.
How did you get in here? Agent Smith.
Be right in.
What is it, sir? Hey, wait. How did you get in here? I don't believe this. He doesn't have clearance, sir. You'll have to come with me.
He doesn't have clearance? How did he get past you?
He snuck in here when I went to pay for the pizza delivery. I was there for a while. I wanted exact change.
Okay, hey, thanks for the interview. That's all I need now.
Sir, stop. Come back here.
He doesn't have clearance?
Thank you. Talk soon. You guys take care.
Security, we have a gate jumper headed for the elevators.
And whereas this interview did not yield all the answers I wanted, I did get to state my point. And as I was leaving the FBI building, I had the realization that making my point was worth the trip. Peña Nieto victorious in Mexican presidential elections. This article from VOA News on July 2nd, 2012. Preliminary results show voters in Mexico have chosen to bring the country's once prominent political party back into power by electing Enrique Peña Nieto as their next president. Election officials said late Sunday that Peña Nieto had 38% of the vote to beat former Mexico City Mayor Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who had 31%. López Obrador said he was not ready to concede. His quote, "We have to represent them as they deserve to be represented, the citizens that have confided in us. We will not in any way act irresponsible. We will have all the information, and when it's the right time, we will inform the people of Mexico about the results of this election." Peña Nieto's Institutional Revolutionary Party ruled Mexico for 71 years until 2000, when voters declared the National Action Party candidate Vicente Fox. Outgoing President Felipe Calderón, also from PAN, which is the National Action Party, they call it PAN here, it should be NAP, but whatever, followed in 2006, but his tenure has been plagued by economic stagnation and rampant drug violence. Calderón deployed the military to fight the drug cartels shortly after he took office. More than 50,000 people have been killed in drug violence since then. Peña Nieto said in an address to his supporters that Mexicans have voted for a change in direction, but he vowed to keep pressure on the cartels. He quotes, "The fight against crime will continue with a new strategy to reduce violence and protect the lives of Mexicans. Let it be clear, with organized crime, there will be no pax or truce." Barry Carr, longtime Mexico analyst at Australia's La Trobe University, told VOA that many Mexicans believe Peña Nieto's party has been always been close to the cartels and that he is in the best position to strike a deal to stabilize the killings. "I think that we may see, not publicly, but I think we may see an attempt, and I think this is what a lot of Mexicans want, and that we may see the scale of the killings reduced," he said. In other words, there may be an implicit deal being done under which there will be less emphasis on pursuing military or by the police the crackdown on drug cartels. And there will be an attempt to pursue the drug cartels to reduce the level of killing both of themselves and other individuals. The PAN candidate in this year's election, Josefina Vasquez Mota, finished third in the voting. This article first appeared on VOA News. I'm Michael Wordsworth, reading for broadcast Breaking Down the News. We're on air live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting at 3:30. We go to 3:30 to 5 Monday and Wednesday, and 3:30 to 6 on Friday. We had some troubles earlier with the transmission. The website was down if you tuned in. There's no way to tell you unless, of course, you've either archived this, in which case it's too late, or you can find us currently at Facebook News, is facebook.com. We're able to broadcast this through Breaking Down the News site. All right, when we come back, more hard-hitting news on the Obamacare. It's a big issue these days. Got Republicans all riled up, but are they riled up for the right reasons? Some of them are, but we'll go on. And where are the Democrats on this issue? I'd like to know. I'm Michael Wordsworth. We'll be right back. Well, it's true. We've been covering the Obamacare situation. I'd like to read you this article from Michael Snyder out of The American Dream. The headline reads, "Our wretched healthcare system is headed directly into the toilet." You might as well stick a fork in the U.S. healthcare system because it's finished. Even before Obamacare, Americans paid far more for healthcare than anyone else in the world. Now, thanks to Obamacare, we will be faced with much higher health insurance premiums, much higher taxes, much longer waits to see doctors, and more government bureaucrats involved in our lives than ever before. As Michael Snyder has written about previously, the U.S. healthcare industry is a horrible mess, and now Obamacare is going to take the entire system directly into the toilet. All over America today, families are going broke because of outrageous health insurance costs and suffocating medical debt. Doctors are going broke and leaving the profession because they can't make a living, and sick people are dying because they cannot get the care that they need. So what solution does Obamacare give us? A nearly 3,000-page monstrosity that will destroy what is left of our crumbling healthcare system and that will unleash 16,000 new IRS agents to hunt down the millions of Americans that do not currently have health insurance. For those that love Big Brother socialist totalitarianism, Obamacare is a dream come true. For the rest of us, it is a total nightmare. Obamacare is truly a Trojan horse. The millions of Americans that support Obamacare believe that they have been given something, but that is a lie. All of us aren't going to be getting free government health care as a result of this law. Instead, we are all being forced to buy health insurance policies that many Americans do not even want from deeply corrupt health insurance companies that make more money when they provide less health care. If we don't buy government-mandated health insurance, the IRS will be coming after us. This reality was beautifully communicated by a cartoon posted on Facebook recently. As a result of Obamacare, there will be more government intrusion in our lives than ever before. Hordes of government bureaucrats will now run the system with predictable results. If you think that the amount of paperwork in our healthcare system is bad now, just wait until this new law is fully implemented. Is Obamacare complicated? For an answer to that question, just check out this flow chart. What sick minds came up with such a monstrosity? Actually, we know that answer. The truth is the big health insurance companies drafted much of the law. The Supreme Court decision upholding Obamacare was very good for health insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and government bureaucrats. It was very bad news for doctors and patients like us. So who is going to pay for this monstrous system? You and I are. Americans for Tax Reform has compiled a list of 21 new taxes that Americans will be paying as a result of Obamacare. And because Democrats have decided that they will fight to the death to save this law, the Republicans will have to take it to the White House, the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives to have any chance of fully repealing it. As Michael Snyder wrote about the other day, there are a whole host of reasons why Obamacare is bad for America. But instead of going on and on about what he thinks, he would like to share with you some of the very interesting things that other people have been saying about the Supreme Court Obamacare decision. The following are 12 incredible Obamacare quotes that show that our wretched healthcare system is headed directly into the toilet. Quote number 1, from Donald Trump himself. Let's get this straight. Okay, we're going to be gifted with a health care plan we are forced to purchase and fined if we don't. What purportedly covers at least 10 million more people without adding a new single doctor, but provides for 16,000 new IRS agents written by a committee whose chairman says he doesn't understand it, passed by a Congress that didn't read it, but exempted themselves from it, and signed by a Dumbo president who smokes. With funding administered by a Treasury chief who didn't pay his taxes, for which we will be taxed for 4 years before any benefit can take place, and by a government which has already bankrupted Social Security and Medicare, all to be overseen by a Surgeon General who is obese and financed by a country that's broke. Donald Trump's quote, what the hell could possibly go wrong? All right, quote number 2, moving right along here. It's very interesting stuff, actually. This from senior Wall Street Journal economics writer Stephen Moore during an interview with Fox and Friends. His quote, again, whatever you want to call it, Allison, fines, taxes, penalties, but 3/4 of those costs will fall on the backs of families who make less than $120,000 a year. So it's a big punch in the stomach to the middle-class families. Quote number 3 regarding Obamacare. This comes from Dr. Elena George of the Project 21 African American Conservative Leadership Network. She states, because of the mandate, Americans will be forced to pay for a system that will increase costs for patients, remove health care decisions from both the doctor and the patient, and lead to rationing. It changes health care as we know it into a system based on one-size-fits-all, cost-controlled, and conveyor belt socialized medicine. Quote number 4 regarding Obamacare comes from Charlie Daniels himself. Perhaps you know the famous country music singer. Great music, great quote here. The United States, he says, the United States of America took a giant step toward a totalitarian socialist government when the Supreme Court voted to uphold Obamacare, allowing the individual mandate for the government to force American citizens to buy health insurance whether they want to or not. Here's a quote from Ron Paul. Recently, his son Rand Paul endorsed Mitt Romney. Boy, a lot of people were not happy about that one. And where this campaign stands with Ron Paul, I don't know. Personally, I didn't think he really had a chance, but now he definitely doesn't have a chance. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have been good for our country. I'm saying he didn't have a chance to get in there. They weren't going to let it happen. America wasn't going to let it happen. Mainline Republicans and Democrats on both sides, just they want to vote no change. They like the tyranny they're under. So let's just get Romney, Obama. It don't matter. They're the same thing. The same agenda is going to be carried forward. And it's disappointing that Democrats and Republicans on both sides do not realize this. Well, here's Ron Paul's quote. We got to throw it in here. He says, this is patently obvious. the power to regulate commerce cannot include the power to compel commerce. That's a great point. The power to regulate commerce cannot include the power to compel commerce. Those who claim otherwise simply ignore the plain meaning of the Constitution because they don't want to limit federal power in any way. The Commerce Clause was intended simply to give Congress the power to regulate foreign trade and also to prevent states from imposing tariffs on interstate goods. In Federalist Paper number 22, Alexander Hamilton makes it clear the simple intent behind the clause was to prevent states from placing tolls or tariffs on goods as they passed through each state, a practice that had proven particularly destructive across the many principalities of the German Empire. Quote number 6 comes from U.S. Representative Todd Akin. He says, "Today, America is threatened with the stage 3 cancer of socialism, and Obamacare is Exhibit 1. There are many of us here who have been fighting this for 3 years, and we don't really want the compassion of the IRS and the efficiency of the post office introduced in our health care, and we are not going to rest until every single line of this bill is repealed." And I'm sure when he said the compassion of the IRS and the efficiency of the post office, he did that with tongue in cheek. Quote number 7 regarding Obama's new health care reform. This comes from the Health Ranger, Mike Adams. We read his articles often here on naturalnews.com. Mike Adams says, "But even if Obama is replaced in the White House, the damage has already been done. With its decision, the U.S. Supreme Court has set a precedent of government control over private paychecks. And that precedent has fundamentally crushed economic freedom in America and opened the door to limitless taxes for everything imaginable. King George himself couldn't have done it better." Quote number 8 comes from a documentary filmmaker, Michael Moore. Many of you have known him for his documentaries. He originally tried to sell us with the movie. What was that movie called? I saw it too, and I don't remember. It was about how great socialist healthcare is. Well, now, 10 years later, I think we can see how great it ain't. That's right. Socialist healthcare is completely falling apart throughout Europe, and all you need to do is talk to Europeans to find out why and what they deal with. You get an aspirin for a headache. That would be nice if you got an aspirin for a headache, but you come in with a heart attack, they toss you an aspirin. That's what I meant to say. Well, filmmaker Michael Moore, we got to read his quote. His quote, you better get on the train or watch your party implode. That's my words of advice to the Republican Party. Are you implying, Mr. Full of Crap Michael Moore, that people need to get on board with this? Otherwise, the Republican Party is going to fall. Look, the Republican Party is going to fall because eventually it's going to all be replaced, Democrats and Republicans alike, with the new totalitarian government, while the Republicans themselves were so completely blind. I mean, let us never, ever forget George W. Bush, the youngin', that said that weapons of mass destruction were in Iraq and that we need to go invade them. Oh, we just blew right over that because you suckers thought you were going to get oil money or something like that. Well, oil's going to hit you hard this summer. It's going to be rising through the roof. And one day you're going to pay $5, $6, $7, $8 at the pump, and the next 10, 12 or more. It's hard to say how far it's going to go, but you idiots basically helped usher in the destruction of our country, pretending to be mainline Republicans. You're not conservatives. You're neo-fake conservatives. You make me sick. You know what? Don't feel bad, though. The Democrats make me sick, too. I could just puke on both of you guys. And I'm speaking to the mainline people that really don't care about any issue that affects us all. They're only interested in preserving the party that preserves their own status quo. Guess what? You're not getting your retirement funds. Wall Street's going to collapse, and your grandchildren are going to suffer for your stupidity. And I'm not happy about that. I never will be. But, hey, what are you going to do? I don't control or run this world. We do collectively to a certain extent, but really it's the 1% pulling the strings. We know that. The Republican middle class, you idiots, think that you're preserving your middle class by voting for whatever bones they toss you out there. They're like, they're speaking bad about Obama's health care. Yeah, but Mitt Romney wrote Obama's health care. He instituted it in Massachusetts, and it was a disaster. The foreign policy that continues to tax and spend the American public to keep this empire going, an empire we don't even benefit from, never stops, does it? But that doesn't bother you people. No. Everything's fine because you really believe life is going to continue like this indefinitely. Well, it's not, and all we have to do is wait and see real soon. Quote number 9 regarding Obama health care. This comes from the communications director of the 10th Amendment Center, Mike Mahari. He says, the states simply need to follow Thomas Jefferson's prescription and nullify the entire act. Well, there's a good statement. They should just refuse to implement this monstrosity. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker has already indicated he will refuse, and other states should follow his lead. Hey, that's good. That's great. That hits home right here. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. The Democrats are most enraged with them, and they have right to be. The Republicans are pleased with them in some sense. They too have right to be. Some things have been done that have brought jobs to our state here. And certainly we don't want our state taken over by a bunch of socialists. The Democratic Party has traditionally been socialist, but it's a soft sell to complete communistic totalitarianism. I agree with that from that point. But to think that Governor Walker is in any way on our side is absolutely ridiculous. He just gives us just enough to make us think that he's a real Republican acting in the behalf and interest of Republican voters. But in actuality, you're going to see real soon, he's setting the precedents that are going to screw up state after state after state and really bring down the middle class. And then when nobody can buy anything in the stores, it won't matter. All right, quote number 10 comes from Becky Ayers. She says, I've never bought medical insurance. The only time a policy has ever covered me was when it came to incidental to a job. The Lord has blessed her with disgustingly good health. Then, too, when she was 18, her mother died of a brain tumor that escaped diagnosis for 6 years despite excruciating headaches and other symptoms a professor of nursing later described as classic. If she were bleeding and unconscious, she might wind up in the clutches of the medical establishment, but never of her own volition. So I deeply and personally resent Robert Little's parlor trick of a word game. Forcing me to buy medical insurance is unconstitutional. If we call it a fine, but perfectly okay if it's a tax. Well, thank you, Becky. Quote number 11 comes from Byron Meduska in the Leavenworth Times. He says, a new survey of doctors has been released. The results are bleak. If Obamacare is fully implemented, 83% will consider leaving the practice of medicine. 61% say it's an affront to their ethics. 85% say it destroys the doctor-patient relationship. 65% say government involvement is the cause of the problems in the medical care now. 72% say the insurance mandate won't result in improved access to medical care. 74% say they'll stop accepting Medicare patients or leave Medicare altogether. 70% say reducing government involvement would be the single best fix for health care in this country. The negatives of Obamacare went on and on in the results of the survey. This quote is, and number 12, the final quote of this article, regarding Obama's new health care reform, comes from Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. I believe I pronounced that right. He says, this decision goes against the very principle that America has a federal government of limited powers, a principle that the Founding Fathers clearly wrote in the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. The Constitution was meant to restrict the power of government precisely for the purpose of protecting your liberty and mine from the overreaching hand of the federal government. This unprecedented decision says that Congress has the authority to force citizens to buy private goods or face fines, a power it has never had in American history, and a power King George III and Parliament didn't have over us when we were mere subjects of Great Britain. Since the federal government itself could never articulate to the court a constitutional limit to this power, Congress has gained an unlimited power to force citizens to buy anything. So what did you think Obamacare is going to do to the healthcare system in America? please feel free to call in today. Hopefully we're on live again, 414-935-2951. I am Michael Wordsworth. You are listening to Breaking Down the News. Back in a moment.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. And we're back. This is Breaking Down the News. I am Michael Wordsworth. And now a bit of fluff. I thought I'd throw a little fluff in here amidst all this serious news. This comes from Fox News, a deplorable website, a horrible, horrible journalistic reputation. Taco Bell, their article, it concerns Taco Bell. Of course it does. But I had to read it because when you mix Taco Bell and Alaska, that's just a strange combination, isn't it? Well, Taco Bell to give Alaska town 10,000 taco feast after hoax. This article from Anchorage, Alaska. Residents of Bethel, Alaska know from cable TV ads what the major fast food chains offer. Chicken at KFC, burgers at McDonald's, and tacos at Taco Bell. They just haven't been able to get any of it. The city of 6,200 people is about 40 miles inland from the Bering Sea in far western Alaska. And the closest fast food, other than a Subway sandwich shop, is in Anchorage, 400 miles and a $500 round trip plane ticket away. So they were elated to learn that Taco Bell was soon going to open a restaurant. The joy, you guys are actually saved by that. You're glad Taco Bell did not open a restaurant. I'm sure their meat is coated and so saturated with ammonia. It wouldn't be surprised me if they used the pink slime still. And their vegetables are undoubtedly GMO. I can't confirm that, but that would just be my guess. It's the cheapest possible crap you could ever buy and stick inside a taco shell. Well, they're happy though because they were happy for a second. Their joy, however, turned into disappointment, as the article explains. The flyers announcing the chain's arrival were a hoax. Somebody psyched out poor Anchorage here. The result, police say, of a feud between two residents. But all was not lost. Taco Bell executives learned of the mix-up and arranged an enormous feast for Sunday. They plan to fly enough ingredients in from Anchorage to make 10,000 tacos. It'll be a big event for our community, Mayor Joe Klajic said. I wonder if their community can eat 10,000 tacos. That's kind of interesting. Taco Bell will offer its fare for free. There will be 950 pounds of seasoned, crappy, horrible beef that'll affect your mind and body. 300 pounds of lettuce that I'm sure has no nutritional value. 150 pounds of cheddar cheese that probably hasn't seen a cow or God knows what's mixed in with that cheese, and 500 pounds of reduced fat sour cream, and 300 pounds of tomatoes that will undoubtedly be no good for you. The chain is accustomed to feeding large groups of people in far-flung places. If we can feed people in Afghanistan and Iraq, we can feed people in Bethel, the company's CEO Greg Creed said, declining to discuss the cost of the feast. Oh, well, they had to make that little plug that they fed Afghanistan and Iraq, huh? Honey, don't touch that. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, ma'am. We had trouble getting on the air lately, and it's just kind of like, that thing cuts off our stream. I'm sorry, son. It's okay. We almost had a technical difficulty. It's okay. He got it. Oh, it's all good. We were discussing tacos and almost got cut off the air. I'm talking to hopefully a whole bunch of people here. Anyhow. Police Sergeant Chris Sallier said the hoax appeared to be the result of one resident retaliating against another. Flyers went up in June announcing the opening and including a phone number to call to inquire about a job at the new restaurant. The number belonged to the targeted person. Bethel was a large transient population with people moving from the lower 48 to work in the hub city. The city has no bars and will soon have its first movie theater. Oh. Well, I hope you guys get a movie theater, actually. I mean, you could use one out there in Alaska, I'm sure. Blah, blah, blah. This article, I can't even take it seriously. I just had to read it. Little fluff piece. If I had to redo this headline, Taco Bell to give Alaska town 10,000 tacos of incredibly crappy food that's bad for your health. I mean, my God, just go make a taco. Like, you can get ingredients to tacos. I mean, in Anchorage, Alaska, or Bethel, Alaska, I'm sure you guys got ground beef from actual, get it from grass-fed cows that are not fed any hormones. Get your milk from at least from an organic producer, or hey, raw milk cheese is actually not illegal for some reason in most states. In fact, there's an article I got to read in there. I've got it. A woman was arrested in Minnesota for buying raw milk and insisting that she has the right to drink milk from a cow the way we've been doing for thousands of years. A lot of you guys in the city here don't know what the people are doing out on the farms and the stuff that they have to deal with. But we're going to have our new website up real soon. It's called breakingdownthenews.com. And basically the articles there will parallel what was discussed on the show today. And I hope to get that up soon. So check out breakingdownthenews.com. Also, make sure you go to Breaking Down the News at Facebook. Do a friend request. We'd be happy to accept your request and get you updates on shows. Then I'd like to remind people that this show is available on podcast. You can subscribe by just hitting the button, then pick your favorite subscription method. Here's the article I want to read about the brave Minnesota mother. This article by Ethan A. Huff. Brave Minnesota mother risks going to prison for continuing to facilitate raw milk distribution. That's right. This is what it's come to in America. It gets a lot worse, but basically, this is right on the front lines. When the government tells us we can no longer drink raw milk from a cow, I mean, I could understand, if you sold it unknowingly to people that didn't know it was raw, maybe that would be an ethical issue, but not a legal one. But the milk that they pasteurize and homogenize is devoid of nutrients, and it's filled with cow pus, blood, and fecal matter, and it's because it's pasteurized, heated up. That's why they can serve it to you, because it kills the pathogens. Well, raw milk doesn't need to be pasteurized, and farmers that distribute raw milk are extremely clean and extremely careful. They don't need to decontaminate their milk and get all the crap, blood, and pus out of it. And I literally mean crap. I don't mean figuratively. I mean fecal matter. Well, long story short, raw milk's good for you, and that's the way we used to do it in this country for decades, if not 100 plus more. In this country, thousands of years throughout humanity. But everybody was sold on that you need your non-nutritious hormone-laden, pus, blood, fecal matter-filled milk. That's what you want on your tables, America, and that's why you're fat, bloated morons. That's right. That's right. It's true. Well, this article from Ethan A. Huff on Natural News. A Minnesota mother has decided that her state's health department is completely out of line in demanding that she stop distributing raw milk to members of her buying club, and has chosen instead to continue helping these families in her area access this highly medicinal food, even if it means going to jail. Charlene Sean Muehlbauer of St. Anthony Park near St. Paul, Minnesota, is one of several mothers involved in a local cooperative that takes turns picking up raw milk from a farm 90 miles away and hauling it back to the Twin Cities for distribution. Since Minnesota law allows for raw milk sales only on the farm, Charlene has offered to have her garage serve as a legal drop point for the milk. In accordance with state law, members of Charlene's buying club each pay the farm directly for their milk and later pick it up from Charlene's drop point. The setup is a convenient, practical way for raw milk buyers in the Twin Cities area to access the raw milk without having to each drive separately to the farm to pick it up. But when officials from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture got wind of what Charlene and the others were doing, they quickly swooped in and tried to shut the whole thing down. MDA claims that the drop point violates state law, even though it clearly does not. This quote from Charlene, I believe. Yep, said Charlene to the Twin Cities Daily Planet. People are not buying milk from me. They're buying from the farm. It's not like this is a hallucinogenic substance. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong or illegal. I'm willing to go to jail, but to be jailed for something like this, it's just wrong. Well, you're right, Charlene. It's absolutely insane. We've become a nation of control freaks. And... Oh, I'd like to go on, but I'm going to read this article. Practicing civil disobedience in the face of government tyranny promotes liberty. Thank you, Charlene, for standing up and doing what's right. Charlene's decision to stand up for her freedom of food choice is one that could lead to more trouble for her and her family, as authorities in her area have convinced themselves that sharing the burdens associated with storing and transporting multiple families' purchased milk from the farm violates state laws, but is one that she is bravely willing to take. When Charlene's now 22-year-old daughter, Amanda, tested positive... Oh, what the hell is this? When Charlene's now 22-year-old daughter, Amanda, tested positive for rheumatoid arthritis several years ago, the young woman ended up quickly becoming bedridden as a result of chronic debilitating pain. But raw milk would end up being the cure for Amanda's condition and the motivating factor for her mother to make it accessible to others. Charlene has continued to stand her ground in the face of government tyranny, refusing to back down to its unlawful demands, and in the process, she is setting a powerful example for the rest of us to follow, should we, too, be faced with rogue statists hell-bent on stealing away our freedoms. If only we had more Charlenes in the world who are not afraid of government threats, who bravely stood up for what they believed in no matter what the cost. This type of civil disobedience, after all, is how real liberty is both promoted and preserved. Are you willing to follow Charlene's lead in the face of tyranny? I hope you are. As Jesus said, sometimes we have to give up our lives to save them. Of course, he didn't mean in this particular situation, but he said it, and I agree that sometimes we have to be more concerned with what preserving our delusional existence here, trapped in this mind matrix of an artificial reality we call society in our world. The whole thing's been fabricated, manufactured by DuPont Chemicals, and served up with a bed of propaganda, a deep, embedded lie that only is dividing us so we can be more easily conquered. It's a sad, tragic situation when a woman has to be arrested for milk distribution. All right, we're going to come back and we're going to read on and on and on. The news. We've got to love the news. I'm Michael Wordsworth. I'll be right back. Italy and Crisis, The Decline of the Roman Democracy and the Rise of Super Mario Technocracy. This article by Andrew Gavin Marshall, Infowars.com. Part 1 of Italy in Crisis, a series of excerpts from a chapter in an upcoming book. Well, good luck, Andrew Gavin Marshall. We need more authors writing about real things, real issues. Let's read what he has said. The European debt crisis continues into its third year, with 4 government bailouts of Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, and having imposed harsh austerity measures upon the people of Europe, forcing them to pay through reduced standards of living and increased poverty for the excesses of their political and financial rulers. Italy, as Europe's third largest economy, with one of the largest debt-to-GDP ratios, plays a central role in the unfolding debt crisis across Europe. Part 1 of this excerpt from a chapter on the economic crisis in his upcoming book covers the suspension of democracy in Italy and the imposition of a technocracy, an unelected government led by academics and bankers, with a mandate to punish the people, facilitate the financial elite, and serve the interests of the supernatural that's not supernatural, but supranational, unelected, technocratic European Union. Power centralized, power globalizes, power plunders and profits on the punishment and impoverishment of people everywhere. This is the story of Italy's debt crisis. This is an unedited, rough draft excerpt from his upcoming book, the preface of the People's Book Project. Let me read this here. Bilderberg, Berlusconi, and Italian austerity. The Italian finance minister, Giulio Tremonti, had attended the Bilderberg meeting in early June of 2011, alongside other notable Italian participants, including Franco Bernabe, CEO of Telecom Italia and vice chairman of the Rothschild Europe. John Elkann, the chairman of Fiat, Mario Monti, the president of Bocconi and University, and a former EU commissioner, and Paolo Scaroni, the CEO of Eni, just a whole bunch of cheese. Okay, the Bilderberg meeting for 2011 took place from June 9th to the 12th in Switzerland. Of course, was attended by a host of other major European elites, including Joseph Ackerman, chairman and CEO of Deutsche Bank, this is a long article, and I'm going to run out of time if I read this. Maybe I could pick up on it again. It's rather in-depth, too, and I just can't go this deep. So the question is, why did I read this? I wanted to because, I mean, it's a great point, and I'm sure this is going to be a great book. It's just it doesn't read as well orally as I'd like. So I'm sure it reads fine as a written book, but we're too late in the show to run off a list of names and try to explain the relevance to the situation we're talking about. So let me just pop through a couple more articles here. We've got Al-Qaeda planning to bomb U.S. plane and run up to the Olympics. This is by a post-staff report from the New York Post on July 1st. Intelligence officials have uncovered a new Al-Qaeda plot to bomb a U.S. passenger jet in the run-up to London Olympics, according to a new report. Al-Qaeda's Yemen-based terror cell, the same organization behind the 2009 attempted underwear bombing, and a similar terror plot uncovered by a CIA informant less than 2 months ago, is believed to be behind this latest planned attack, according to a Sunday Times of London. Basically what happened was there was a rumor that this was going to happen, and then it got leaked out. Now that it's been reported on, everybody's bringing it to light, and I guess we should, but, you know, the basic message here is you got to always be afraid of the terrorists, even though you're more likely to die of a bee sting, far more likely, like 4,000 times more likely to die from a car accident. We are constantly being taught that we must spend all of our tax dollars to ward off an enemy called the terrorist Al-Qaeda. And the Al-Qaeda is going to get us. Boogeyman. Ooh, scared. That's why we have to turn into a police state. Well, that's not the real reason. The real reason is because our economy is being collapsed. It's going to collapse relatively soon. Just listening today, there's a good projection that over the next 2 to 4 months, Europe could really hit the skids. And that would affect us really quickly. 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours. It's hard to say. But once Europe goes down, folks, I'd start planning to go for a long haul. So look, I'm gonna pull out of here, and we're gonna play an interview I did with David Rockefeller. He's all over the news, spreading his nefarious plans. So let's just cut to this interview. I'm Michael Wordsworth. When we come back, we'll sign out of here. Please check us out on the podcast, online. All right, I'm Mike. I'm going to transfer you over to Mike. Here we go. This is me at the David Rockefeller interview.
Once again, the Bilderberg meeting is happening today in Chantilly, Virginia, where many of Europe's top bankers and technocrats are gathering in secret to plan the global economy for the next 12 months. To get a deeper view of this, Breaking Down the News has met with David Rockefeller in Virginia. Mr. Rockefeller, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. I'm sure this is a big moment in your pathetic life as a news talk show host.
Now, do you prefer that I call you Evil, or just Mr. Rockefeller, or David Evil Rockefeller?
Ooh, that sounds good, yes. Call me David Evil Rockefeller. I like the sound of that.
Very well, Mr. Evil Rockefeller. Now, Bilderberg, the not-so-secret meeting taking place this week...
Now, hold on a second. We are grateful to the Washington Post, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. But now, since the New York Times betrayed me, I would like to retract my praise for the cowardly media outlets that leaked our little get-togethers to the mainstream. Boo! Hiss! Hiss! It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries.
But Mr. Evil...
That's David Evil Rockefeller to you.
My apologies.
No, you should get it right. You're a reporter for Lucifer's sake.
Pardon me, David Evil Rockefeller.
That's better. Normally, we hate to be forced out of the shadows, but some fat bastard keeps blowing a bullhorn at my hotel room all weekend, shouting, the answer to 1984 is 1776 or something like that. I mean, what the Hades does that mean? Well, this unruly blowhard has got the people all up in arms.
Well, yes, the people are revolting.
They most certainly are.
Pardon?
The people, yes, they are most revolting.
No, I meant the people are revolting against these secret meetings taking place now that the public has become aware of them.
Oh, that. Well, of course, but they don't pay attention. They don't listen. Most don't even know who I am or what I do.
That isn't true. Not of the young people these days. They don't see much of a future ahead of them because of men like you and the Bilderberg attendees. The younger generations are starting to really pay attention.
Ah, but that is exactly why I created Justin Bieber. Made him out of some spare parts I had laying around.
I would still say the tide is turning, and the people are waking up to your corrupt, technocratic system.
This present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built, will not be open for long. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order.
Alright, calm down. At this year's meeting of the Bilderbergers, you've got some big-time European heavyweights there. Dr. Joseph Ackerman, Angela Merkel, Herman Van Rompuy, all meeting with you to figure out what to do with the economy for the next 12 months. Now, if Greece is to leave the Eurozone, the rumor is that the Bilderbergs are panicking.
I don't think Greece is going to leave the euro. Germany doesn't want it to leave the euro, and Greece signed off on this memorandum with Troika, as it's called, which is effectively turning their sovereignty over to outside forces, and it's up to Germany, not the Greek people. They lost their sovereignty. I don't see that happening. It's not up to them. It's not their choice. Germany wants to keep Greece, to keep the euro cheap. If it wasn't for Greece, the Deutschmark would trade like the Swiss franc. It would be 20 or 30% higher, and their whole export model would crumble. Right now, Germany is making it out like bandits. They're making money the old-fashioned way.
By earning it?
No, by stealing it. Since the reunification of Germany, something that wouldn't have happened without the euro, Germany has become a superpower once again.
Basically, it's a leveraged buyout. All the assets of Greece are being taken by outsiders. And those are good income-producing assets like shipping, tourism, lotteries.
You are forgetting the gold mines. Don't forget the gold mines.
Right, gold mines. Those were privatized and sold off, correct?
Yes, approximately 111 tons of gold. I'm going to melt it all down and make little figurines of Justin Bieber that the kids can pray to.
But the IMF is bankrupt and they're lending money to Greece. They had to borrow trillions to execute a leveraged buyout.
Ah, but the real trick is getting the Greeks to sign on to this debt. Get it? We borrow the money to lend to them and then take over their sovereignty as we buy out their assets. It's brilliant, simply brilliant.
And then those assets go back to the IMF creditors.
They want the fees. Christine Lagarde says, just give me the fees. Give me my salary and you can rob the Greeks blind for all I care.
Evil. Truly evil.
That is why I am called David Evil Rockefeller.
So, it's like Mitt Romney when he was at Bain Capital. They just look for small companies and gut them. And in a like manner, Greece is just a small country that you can seize with a hostile takeover.
It is a Jimmy Goldsmith model, done on a bigger scale. Same thing. You pledge the assets of a country like Greece to secure loans to take over the country. Sell the assets, keep the difference, make lots of money. The people lose their sovereignty, their jobs, and I get to add another platinum-covered toilet in my horse stable.
So these Bilderberg meetings are a great way for you and the world's leaders to meet behind the scenes with no transparency and just basically decide the fate of any given economy.
Well, yes, and up until now it was a secret, but no matter. It was no coincidence that we took Ireland, Greece, Portugal, and then Spain in that order. This year, the big question is, where do we go next? France? Maybe UK is an interesting choice. It's similar to how you peasants buy houses, but we get entire countries for pennies on the dollar, you see.
The IMF, since the 60s, has preyed on Africa, then South America, then Southeast Asia.
Yes, well, while America was obsessed with Iraq, we were very busy taking over those regions.
But China threw you a curveball. They had a different model.
Well, China did good business, and that is inconsistent with the Bilderberger policy. However, the U.S. can't really tangle with China because China is now the U.S. biggest creditor, and the whole thing is a sticky situation.
I would like to read you a quote from Bill Moyers about you. May I?
Ooh, yes, if it's about me. Mommy always talked about me and I liked it. Talk about me, talk about me.
David Evil Rockefeller is the most conspicuous representative today of the ruling class, a multinational fraternity of men who shaped the global economy and managed the flow of its capital. Rockefeller was born into it, and he has made the most of it. But some critics see a vast international conspiracy he considers a circumstance of life and just another day's work. In the world of David Rockefeller, it's hard to tell where business ends and politics begins.
It is. It really is. Some days I wonder how history will look back on my takeover of the United States, and they will ask that very question and just don't know how I would answer even now.
So you admit that you want to take over the United States.
For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe they are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it.
Wait, didn't you write that in your personal memoirs?
Ooh, you're a smart one, Mr. Wordsworth.
Well, thank you, I guess.
No, I hate that. Hate it. The second we gain control of America, people like you will have to go. And by go, I mean disappeared with black hoods over your heads. Now that is scary. You should be scared. Very scared.
I am not afraid.
Oh, you will be. You will be.
This has been an exclusive interview with David E. Rockefeller, Chantilly, Virginia. I'm Michael Wordsworth. Back in a moment. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
All right, yeah. We are so back, but now we gotta go. It's been a great show. It's Monday at top of the 5 o'clock hour. Thank you for listening. Please check us out. Subscribe to those podcasts. Contact me on Facebook.com at Breaking Down the News. Contact me at breakingdownthenews@gmail.com. Call in sometime at 414-935-2951 when we're live on the air Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3:30 to 5, 3:30 to 6 on Friday. And, of course, you can also check out my new website, which should be up tomorrow, hopefully. And that website is breakingdownthenews.com. So we've got all the show titles / email.coms. Everything's almost covered. We got to hit Twitter, stumble in on all those things, but your help is always appreciated. All right, I'm Michael Wordsworth. I'm the heck out of here. You guys take care and have a good night.